tab, closing out the week here on the road against Austin. How's the team kind of navigated preparations for this one, this third game here in this last week or so?
Yeah, it was obviously a tough week to start. We got a big win against Seattle, but I think then finding out that we were mathematically out of the playoffs, I think the team took that a little bit hard, and maybe that had a little bit of an effect, on Wednesday's game. Having said that, I thought we came out. We had two clear chances to take the lead in the game, and unfortunately, we didn't. And then gave away that penalty, and then things started to unravel a little bit after that. But overall, I think the team mentally is recovered today. We had a long talk, and yeah, we're ready for Sunday.
Thank you for that. We'll go with Corey next. Go ahead, Corey.
Hey, Coach. The Dynamo's rivalry with Dallas is obviously, there's a lot of history there. It's new with Austin. How have you felt the rivalry with Austin from a coach's standpoint, even though it's so new, and in what ways have you felt that?
Well, I mean, it all has been new to me, because although Houston and Dallas have had a rivalry for, almost a couple of decades, I haven't lived here, so I haven't lived. How well Dallas has done in the past, and what a good club they are, and I know that we're a champion club, so of course, the rivalry is already there. With Austin is new. But yeah, I mean, for me, it feels like since it's closer to here, maybe, it feels like more of a rivalry because it's almost like down the road, especially for Texas is down the road, on the East Coast is like 3 states away, but here it's, 2 hours away is down the road. And I think it will mean a lot to the fans.
Okay. I think that's all I have. Sorry, lost my train of thought.
That's okay.
Victor, go ahead.
Yeah, just to add on the game this weekend. Obviously, the team's out of the playoffs. There's been the topic of younger players getting minutes, but I think some fans might also wonder how much do you prioritize this rivalry? The possibility, obviously, of Houston winning this Copa Tejas with a win. Can fans expect pretty much a lineup that's would reflect essentially any other game in the season where you're obviously battling for, if you were battling for playoffs or anything like that, basically, would you be playing your best 11?
Well, I mean, I think like anything, I think a rivalry game sometimes goes a little bit beyond whatever the results are and wherever you are on the table, whether, because it just so happens that, for all 3 Texas teams, we're at the bottom of the table, right? But I think, the fans, when it comes to those games in particular, they're not going to care at that time. And so I think at this moment, we owe it to the fans to play the best game we can play. And of course, some guys, have, a little bit of injuries, and we'd have to take them out because, there's no reason to risk players at this point. But we want to go with the players who are ready to play and available, and try to win the game.
What more? I mean, you always said about Fafa's year, the year he's been having, but what more can you expand on his performance this year? Obviously, it's a big year for him. Personal record and goals scored. Matches his best season in assists. And do you think there's enough opportunity giving in this league for the American player?
Wow, that's a great question, and maybe we need a longer answer than the one I can give you. But I mean, Fafa has earned every minute here, and he's done a good job. We signed Bahamic, last year, and yet, Griffin Dorsey came here after getting dropped from Toronto, really without a team, and he won a position. And I think everyone in the call would agree that he should be playing because he's deserved to play. And I think that's how we see it in practice too. And so I think the door is open to anyone, but when you see an American player like Griffin Dorsey come in and do, what he does, obviously Toronto is a team that buys much bigger, much important players. And so he wasn't getting any opportunities. And I think, you will see that if we get to see a little bit more of Ian Hoffman, you will see the same. He's coming along really well. He's another American young player who I think will do well here. I think Sam Junqua, he's had his ups and downs this season, but he's come along, and we can say that he gave us a lot of unexpected minutes this year. So yeah, of course, I'm biased towards the American player. I always feel like the foreign player needs to make the big difference, always. Otherwise, the rest of the players should all be American players on the field.
What else can you add as far as your situation? I mean, I know you don't want to talk about, the renewal of your contract, but, how do you evaluate yourself? And I would imagine you obviously want to be back next season with Houston, but you also have the opportunity to go anywhere else you want.
It's hard to say because, we haven't, I've been here for 2 seasons. Really, this is my first complete season in MLS. I feel like through the season, I think like every coach, we make mistakes and we learn from them. But I certainly feel like, look, I'm just trying to coach the last 3 games, do the best I can. One thing I can tell you is that I've done the absolute best I can do. I don't feel like I have any regrets. I certainly don't have regrets coming here, and I'm thankful for the opportunity from the club, regardless of what happens moving forward. Of course, I would like to stay, but that's up to whatever happens next with this club. I don't control that. What I control is that I can just come to work and do the best I can and try to get the most out of the players I have. And from that respect, I don't have any regrets this year.
What can you share about, Craig Weibel, Pat Onstad, Dennis De Closa? Do you have any relationship to these guys who are being mentioned in the general manager picture?
I pretty much, I'm old, so I pretty much know everybody. But so I know those guys, that if those, I don't even, to be fair, I have no idea who they're interviewing or what's going on. So I don't know. But those 3 names you mentioned, I obviously I know them from soccer conversations because I've always had them. And in particular, having been the under-20 national team coach, I always had relationships with all the clubs. So I knew all the GMs and everyone else that I had to speak to, technical directors all the time that I had to have a good relationship with. So from that end, yeah, I know all the guys. And, I think it's good if those are the names you mentioned. I think it's good that the club is looking within MLS and not for, a foreign, you sort of GM to come in, because of the learning curve at the GM position. It's even much more difficult than at the coach position. I think it's difficult here for foreign coaches to begin with, but I think it's much more difficult at a higher, position at a club like a GM, because the league is difficult. So I'm happy about that regardless, we're looking at, people who are familiar with MLS.